Welcome back to our 10-part seller series where we are chatting about the closing process for sellers. So I guess kind of more towards the end, closing day. Kathy, when does possession typically take place, and when should your sellers be out?
Right. Well, first of all, sellers should be out before closing. We want the sellers out. We want them definitely completely out of the house for sure on the day, by the day of closing, before the day of closing, the night before the day of closing, or sooner would be ideal, or earlier. So the transfer of property takes place after everybody's signed, the loan has funded, and the title company sends the documents to the county so that they are recorded as transferring the property from the seller to the buyer. Once that happens, title company calls buyers, sellers, usually everybody. They send us all a message, and once it is recorded, then the home is officially the buyer's, and at that point, we would be able to give the buyer the keys.
Yeah, and I do think for sellers, just sooner the better. I think, don't stress yourself out and leave things to the last minute. It's just not worth it. Get yourself a hotel room, hire a cleaner for that last night, give them time to really get in there and turn over a nice product for the buyers who are buying your house. It'll feel good for everybody. And then I think for you, just enjoy it. You've made it.
Yeah.
That's a big feat to get out of a home that you've been living in.
Right. So. And just wait for your check.
Yeah. So when does, possession typically take place? And, oh, sorry, we already did that one. I gave you one here if you want. I don't know.
Oh, okay. So yeah, what items are typically understood to transfer with the property unless specifically stated?
Good question. So typically anything that is affixed to the property, I would say would typically be understood unless it's expressly noted at the beginning of a contract. So in the buy-sell, if you have a very special Tiffany chandelier that was your great-grandmother's that you want to take with you, make sure that the buyers are aware of that from the very beginning, right? We want to disclose that when we're listing the property so that nobody's walking into your home and falling in love with something that you have no intention of giving them. I do think if you're taking things like chandeliers or anything that, is affixed, you want to replace it with something somewhat similar, right? So pick out a somewhat nice replacement product that you can have installed and there for the buyers.
Yeah. I think ideally, or in the perfect world, if in fact you are taking that Tiffany chandelier with you, take it out before we do photos and before any buyer sets foot in your property, and put in something that's equally, that provides light to the dining room, that kind of thing. Hopefully it will go with the aesthetic of your home and not just like the cheapest thing you could find at Home Depot. But ideally you wouldn't even want a buyer to have ever seen it.
That's a great point.
Yeah. If it is, and a light fixture is a fixture that would generally be, the idea would be that it would confer or convey with the property. So if not, we need to specifically state that, as Kaila mentioned. Some other things that generally convey with the property are like a dishwasher, but not so much washer and dryer. Those can be negotiated for. Refrigerators are also one of those things that may or may not be there, but that would generally be negotiated in the offer. I think a stove is required to be there unless it wasn't there at all.
Typically what I say, kitchen appliances, those are all most often conveying. Obviously, furnace, disposal, those items, well, of course they can be removed from the house. Those are systems that belong with the house and have been in the home. I do think, like you said, the one exception is the washer and dryer, specifically, at least for our area. I would say that's about 50-50.
Yeah.
But again, really important to disclose that up front so buyers are aware and nobody's getting their heart set on anything.
Right. Other things that are kind of sticky wickets sometimes, spas or hot tubs, while they are attached to the property in some way, they can be moved. So if you are at a home and you say, oh, I love this hot tub, make sure you write it into the offer, because it might be the seller's idea that is a mobile thing that they can take with them. And hopefully the seller's agent would have disclosed that to you. Some things that are supposed to stay with the property, and I say this because I've had this experience, like shrubbery, bushes, trees. Now, there might be an occasion that is, you know, the rose bush that I planted when my mother died, so I'm taking it with me. Well, okay, but we need to let the buyer know that they can't expect that rose bush to be there
Disclosure.
upon closing. Okay.
Yeah. And replacing it, right? Don't
Right.
just leave a hole in the ground.
Yes, right.
You know, have some pride in your home and what you're turning over. I think that's important. Garage shelving.
Yep.
Sometimes people have really elaborate shelving systems in their garage, especially in Montana. If you really love your garage shelving, make sure we know that up front.
Right.
Again.
If it's affixed to the property, if they're built-in cabinets or something, it would be, the buyer's agent will likely tell the buyer those are affixed to the property, so they shall stay. Now, if it's something like a gorilla rack that you would buy at Costco, those are not affixed to the property in general, and I would expect those to go with the seller unless specifically stated. And all, you know, it can all be negotiated.
And I would say, as a small subnote too, if you intend on leaving anything that you just don't want to move. So I recently helped a client close on a downtown property, and there was the original washer and dryer that was in the basement, and those things were ancient. I think it's probably the oldest washer and dryer system I've ever seen, and the sellers were not going to take that out of the basement. That fell on my buyer, and he was willing to assume that because he was doing a lot of renovation work and that didn't bother him. But it was very clear to us that these very difficult appliances to get out of the basement were going to be there at closing. And so again, wasn't an issue because we knew about it up front.
Yeah.
But for some buyers, that could have been a real bummer if it wasn't disclosed up front.
Similar to that would be like a pool table. A lot of time sellers don't want to move a pool table, or sometimes pianos. Those are the kinds of things that do need to be, the seller should be disclosing that upfront, that, hey, the pool table stays. And then it's up to the buyer to decide whether they're willing to take, either they love the pool table and the piano, or they want it gone and they're willing to take on that, the cost of getting it removed. But so some of that personal property can go either way, but generally should be disclosed up front so that you know exactly, you know, what you're doing. Why,
again, prep. As a seller, we can't say it enough. Your home for sale, and that means going through and really taking inventory of what are you moving, what do you have space for in your new place, what do you want to deal with, so that it's not at the last minute like, well, we can't get buyers to move the pool table, so it's, or I'm sorry, we can't get movers to move the pool table, so it's going to stay.
Yeah,
that doesn't fly.
Not cool.
Yeah, so.
Not cool, because maybe that buyer does not play pool, does not like pool, and wants to actually use that room for something besides pool.
Yeah.
So, or billiards, I guess. But so anyway, those are some things that certainly the kitchen appliances is always something that we call out. Some listing agents will use the washer and dryer, and maybe even the refrigerator as a negotiation standpoint or something to negotiate.
Sure.
But yeah, you just want to make sure that you know, as sellers, that you've got a list of what you're taking and what you're leaving, and that as buyers, you know exactly what comes with the house and what you can expect.
So I think, last question is, how do you transfer keys and why?
Right. So I personally, and Kaila, you guys might do it different, but so if I'm representing the seller, once the buyer has done their walkthrough, I go up to the house and I take off the Sentry lock, our Realtor lockbox, and I put a mechanical lockbox on. And what that does is that now the buyer's agent can't get into the house, the buyers can't get in the house, nobody can get into the house without going through me, because I will have the code to the mechanical lockbox. If somebody needs to get in there, they can get in there, but not unless they talk to me. What that does is that once we do have closing and we've got notification that the property is recorded and is now the buyer's home, I can call the buyer's agent and say, hey, this is the code to the mechanical lockbox. And if he or she doesn't want to be there with the buyers, he can tell them, hey, this is the code to the mechanical lockbox, and they can get in at their leisure.
You definitely don't want it to be an issue for the buyers to get keys or make it feel like an encumbrance. So oftentimes, not uncommon for us to transfer keys through the title company. It can be a great strategy. I don't personally love that for my buyers because they have to go back to the title company after signing documents. So I do think trying to streamline the process while protecting your home, the property, kind of in that somewhat interim period where, you know,
Right.
we're close, but we're not fully there yet. I think it's a great strategy that you have, and, you know, something.
Well, I mean, you know, it's not done until it's done, and anything can happen. So I just feel like that's, it's, buyers will be very tempted. They will be sitting in the driveway in their U-Haul truck, and if they know the code to that lockbox, or if they
have keys in
or
hand,
have the keys in hand, they are not going to wait. They're going to get in that house, even though the property hasn't recorded, and any number of things could happen at that point. I just feel like definitely no transfer of keys before we know it's recorded with the county, and then just trying to make that easy for both the buyer and the buyer's agent is what I like to do. But again, protecting the property.
And I do think it could sound like we're maybe alarmists, right? I know I've had some people be like, relax, it's Bozeman still, like, no big deal, we can calm down. And I do agree with that, but keep in mind, we do this full time over the years and years, and we do unfortunately see some of the bad outcomes. So that's where these systems come in place, and why I'm such a big fan of having those general systems where, even though sometimes you might want to deviate from them, we stick to them for a specific reason, and that is through learned experiences, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's, to me, part of what a realtor can offer, bring to a transaction, is just, what are those systems that make sense, and how does this work, and why are you doing certain things that maybe seem, again, maybe a little overkill, but we do it for a reason.
Right. The reality is when I'm working for a seller, my job is to protect them.
And their property.
Right. And a buyer, they might have signed their papers, but the lender gets the right, you know, after the papers get signed, in most cases, the title company sends their loan documents back to the lender. The lender will look over them. It's not impossible. The lender might call and verify employment once more. They might pull their credit once more. They might do any number of things.
They can do anything to make sure that that borrower is still who they said they were
borrower
on paper.
Now, what we don't know is if that buyer quit their job that morning because they thought they were free and clear and had this house. Well, all of a sudden their loan doesn't go through. And in the meantime, we gave them access to the house and they moved half their stuff in. That's why we don't like that to happen.
Yeah. Again, prevention, and just trying to control what you can control when you can. So,
and while it might be painful for them to sit in the driveway in their U-Haul for a couple of hours while we wait for the property to record, then there's just no mistake. Mm-hmm. So
I think that's what we have for closing.
So once we get this far, sellers, you should celebrate, absolutely, but just know that, you know, agents like Kaila and I are there to protect you and your property, and make sure that we make it all the way to the finish line. It's not over till it's over, but we will definitely let you know when it is.
When it is over.
Celebrate.
Yeah.
We will too.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.